and welcome to our lecture on the King Report on Corporate Governance for South Africa. I hope you are adjusting to our platform and how we operate. If you guys have any struggles in keeping up with the work or finding the information, please just let us know so that you can keep your studies alive at all times. Before we get into the King Report, guys, like I always do, I want to take you to the schedule so that you can see what the plan for the week is, but then also the SACA knowledge levels for this specific topic in order to identify where you want to focus your time. So let's have a look at our schedule. So we're in week 2 and we're doing the King Code. And note here, guys, there's no tutorial. This is a double lecture to address the theory for King so that we can start to do questions integrated with the different legislations and regulations for this period. I do, however, want to stress that I have got a nice integrated class question dealing with Companies Act and King. So this is a good idea of how these two topics get asked in your tests and exams because they cover a lot of the same governing principles. Okay, so let's have a look at the SACA knowledge levels. We've got an entire section dedicated to corporate governance. So this is obviously week 2 we're looking at. And you'll see that there's a lot of level 1s throughout. We get to our first level 3, which is your practices, principles, and governance outcomes. And our focus is going to be here on part 5, focusing on the principles that are at level 3. So ethical leadership is really important. The primary role of the governing body and its composition, as well as the committees, all level 3s. Delegation to management, level 3. And there you can see, guys, going through the rest of it is mostly your level 2s. There is financial reported related in terms of our assurance, making sure that we've got that addressed. Okay, so that's where our focus is with regards to King. I want to do a quick recap of the Companies Act because, like I said, there is a class question that is going to address the two because they're often tested together, and then we'll move into the details of King. So I mentioned in the lecture plan how Companies Act and King often gets tested together because they have got some very similar principles. So I just wanted to do a quick recap of the Companies Act, specifically focusing on some of the key avenues that you would get tested on, but then also the link between the Companies Act and King. So from a Companies Act perspective, I've got you the Board of Directors and I've got the shareholders. Companies Act really focuses on these two bodies. From a conduct perspective, the Companies Act drills the conduct of directors, saying that they must act in the best interest of the company with due care. They must not act recklessly or negligently with intent to defraud. They need to monitor liquidity and solvency, and certain decisions cannot be made if liquidity and solvency are under threat. And they must disclose personal interests, especially if it's going to affect decisions that come with the governing of this business. And what I want you to know is that all of these are the same in King. So we're going to see throughout this lecture that the conduct of what the Companies Act requires of the Board of Directors is the same as the conduct of what the King Code requires of the governing body, which would be the Board of Directors for a company. Then, just to recap some of the important decisions that the Companies Act addresses, it says the Board of Directors will have certain authority over shareholders, like issuing of shares to shareholders, like authorizing distributions such as dividends to shareholders. On the shareholders front, then they have some authority over directors in that they can authorize the appointment and removal of directors, as well as they need to authorize the director's remuneration. So it's almost like the equal opposites. Board get to decide who will be shareholders in terms of issuing shares. Shareholders get to decide who will be directors in terms of appointing or removing them. And then Board of Directors will get to determine revenue of shareholders through authorizing distributions and dividends, and then shareholders get to determine revenue of your board by authorizing directors' remuneration. And then just for completeness sake, to make sure that we have addressed all the very important decisions, I've then said where there's combined authority, where directors and shareholders have to authorize. So financial assistance for the subscription of shares. So issuing shares, the board can do, but as soon as the person who wants the shares needs financial assistance almost alone to get these shares, then both parties need to authorize. The same if there's financial assistance to a director. It's such a big decision that the directors should also have a part as well as the shareholders. And then issuing shares to a director, well, normally your directors have the authority to issue shares, but now it's to a director, so it affects them. And so the shareholders also get to vote. Okay, so in terms of the King Code, they don't really discuss these specific decisions and the authority of these. However, they do discuss the shareholders having the authority to appoint directors, and directors' remuneration is addressed in that the shareholders are able to vote, but their vote is non-binding. So we are going to see some differences here between the Companies Act and King. Before we dive into King, guys, I just want you to watch this next video, which is on how bad corporate governance is hurting South Africa. It is an older video. However, it does speak to the changes from King 3 into King 4 and how maybe that could be a concern in hiding some bad corporate governance.